Welcome back to another episode of Important Miscellaneous Talks. I'm your host, Crossfield. We are changing the world one podcast at a time. Our wonderful guest, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Bradley Gray. I'm a dating coach from Southern California.
All right, then, Mr. Bradley. How does someone get into that field?
Oh man, well, if you want to know my path, here's what happened. When I was 23 years old, I got married, very young age, and I came from a very religious background. So I was a virgin when I got married, which I know is an impressive feat to accomplish these days.
Yes.
Um, so what happened was, over the course of my marriage, we got young, we got married, and I probably got married just because I was kind of super desperate to have sex, and that's the only way I believed I could do it was to get married, right? So I probably didn't pick the best partner, and then that kind of made me question, just some of my beliefs around sexuality and women and relationships, and then eventually our relationship went down in flames spectacularly. And at 28 years old, I found myself, I was divorced. I'd only been with one woman. I didn't know anything about how to attract women. I just kind of got lucky with her. And so I had no idea what to do. And I was just so like, I don't know if scared is the right word, but like I just didn't have any belief in myself. And I was like, how am I ever going to recover from this? And so what I did is I hired dating coaches to help me learn the ropes, And so I hired guys. I was really interested in like the pickup artists, that I'd seen online. I really liked them because they had, all that like kind of social flamboyance. And I was a very shy, introverted person at the time. So I wanted to be able to overcome all that. I wanted to overcome my social anxiety. I wanted to be able to go out and meet people, women specifically, but even men, just form good social connections, like be that guy who can command a room and create good relationships at will so that I would never have to deal with that fear that I had felt at the end of my marriage when I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to find another girl. I'm not going to be able to, recover from this. I just never wanted to feel that again. So I hired my coaches. I worked really hard with them, really close with them, and I've worked with several of them for many years. I started getting really good at it. I started helping other guys that my coaches were coaching, and then just over time, just kind of snowballed. And people started to see my success and my transformation, so they started to ask me, "Hey, how do you do this?" And I finally just decided, you know what? Like, I want to help guys overcome the same problems that I had. So that's how I got started.
Are you still a Christian? Well, I'm assuming you were a Christian.
I actually don't identify as a Christian anymore.
Interesting. So, do you think that the sexual shame that came along with being a devout Christian pushed you away from the religion?
That was part of it. For me, and I knew because when I left religion, like that was a whole traumatic experience in itself. It was all I'd ever known. I grew up in the church. So when I left, it was a very tough decision, but I knew that I didn't want to leave based on like an emotional decision or because I was angry or something like that. Like that sexual shame and my experiences in life, they helped push me to question, but I did have to come to a more rational, logical conclusion about why I was leaving. So, I just realized I just lived in a bubble my whole life. I never listened to anyone who had other, ideas about the world or anything. So I spent a good few years. This was like during my marriage. I spent a good few years. I listened to a lot of podcasts of like, religious debates. Like atheists debating Christians. Different religions debating each other. And I just kind of came to the conclusion for myself that when it comes to religion, I really don't identify with any one religion. I don't personally believe there's a God, but I'm not like hostile to it. Maybe there's some kind of higher power, or maybe there's some kind of source energy from the universe or a universal consciousness. I'm not sure, but definitely like the Christian beliefs and the sexual shame and all that, it just didn't serve me. It caused a lot of depression, social anxiety, like I said. And I just needed something that was going to allow me more freedom to be who I am and to express myself more fully.
Interesting. So how do you suggest someone finds that balance between wanting to remain a Christian, wanting to, make God happy, but still being able to balance that with your sexual desires?
That's a really hard question. Because in my opinion, that's a very, very difficult thing to do. And, so like if I was still a Christian, I think the only way is you'd have to give up this belief that you have to be married to have sex, because that might have worked in a time when the Bible was written thousands of years ago when people were getting married in their teenage years. But if you're not getting married till 30, 35, 40 years old, I'm sorry, like that's not a good way to live your life. Like that will cause more problems than it solves.
Mm,
So now, would it maybe be still ideal to, like, so if I was talking to a Christian, I would say, look, obviously you don't have to go out and be a pickup artist and sleep with, dozens or hundreds of women, but maybe find a partner, and if you're not at a point where you can realistically get married, it's okay to have sex with a monogamous partner. It doesn't make you a terrible person. It doesn't make you a horrible sinner. It just makes you human.
so have you noticed that a lot of the sexual shame stems from a particular religion more times than not?
I'm not sure if I would pin it on one particular religion, because I only have my experience of Christianity, and I was not like I was very conservative. Like I grew up Baptist, so very traditional, very fundamental values. I know there's branches of Christianity that are much more liberal and probably don't have as much issue with it as like my branch did. But I would imagine that if any religion is as kind of like conservative and fundamental as mine was, I would assume it increases that sexual shame as well.
I was more so referring to when you get your clients, have you noticed that the sexual shame normally stems from a religion, not necessarily one specific one, but
Oh, yes. Definitely big time. I believe that and I don't think it's ill intention. Like I don't think it's malicious,
Mhm.
but I do think that you receive the message very young that sex is bad.
Mhm.
Even if the message technically, right? Because even I receive this technically, they say, "Oh no, sex is beautiful, it's wonderful, it's from God, but it should only be in marriage." And that sounds nice, but in practicality, in the real world,
Mhm.
what they do is they try to make you fear sex before marriage. Like, don't have sex before marriage, with all the typical, you'll get a disease, God will cry, you'll get someone pregnant, like, and so you really start to develop this unhealthy relationship with sex because you're a sexual being. When you start going through puberty and your, teenage years in high school, you're a sexual being. You want to have sex, but you don't have an outlet. And one thing I would say is that I definitely don't think the church teaches like any healthy way to get that outlet. And what happened in particular in my
Mhm.
situation, my outlet that I think most men just turn to is porn. And
Mhm.
that increases the shame cycle because now it's like,
Mhm.
oh, well, I'm looking at this thing I shouldn't. God doesn't like that. If my parents found out or if my friends found out, they wouldn't like that. So it's something secretive. So it increases and it compounds that shame as well. And that's a very difficult cycle to break out of.
I definitely agree. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I grew up Christian. And I think that's one thing. Oh, the only thing they tell us about sex is that you just have to wait until you're married. They don't tell us.
Right.
They don't necessarily go into explanation. They don't give us alternatives or solutions. Everything I learned about sex was from TV or sex ed. So I wish we
Yeah.
had that comfortability where we can talk more openly about those sort of things in church. And just according to testosterone alone, it's gonna be difficult to
Yeah.
avoid these thoughts. Like women are, I look at them and I'm attracted, and I have an erection, and what goes on after that? Like, am I a bad person because I have an erection? So I wish more churches went more into detail on those sort of things, and parents as well. I come from a Caribbean background, and a lot of my Caribbean and African friends, they mentioned they never had that talk with their parents. It's just kind of like, well, you just go about and figure it out yourself.
Yeah, that's rough. And like I said, when you're waiting so much longer these days to get married, it just becomes a very impractical way to do it. In fact, I was thinking when you just said that, I was wondering if like, that kind of, encouraging men to suppress their sexuality so much, I wonder if that actually has led to, you hear all the time about the decrease in testosterone levels. You know, if some men just are deeply sexually ashamed and they don't want to release that, they just have to suppress it so much so their body just says, "Oh, you know what? Well, we're not going to be having sex. You know, we're not going to be doing that. So what's the point of having this testosterone now?"
Mm, right. So, what would you say is the biggest tip when it comes to men for dating? Your biggest tip to help them?
So, yeah, like first thing is to overcome that sexual shame because the turning point for me really was when I realized that like it's okay to be sexual. In fact, it's better to be a sexual man when you're approaching a woman than it is to be like this rational logical man, right? Because you'll hear all the time what's the number one complaint I always get is, "Oh, you know, what do I say?" right? What do I say to a girl? That's always the number one like thing that trips guys up. And the problem with that is when you're in that kind of headspace, it means you're trying to be very rational when you're seducing a woman. So you're trying to logic your way into her pants, basically. And that's not how women respond to men. They actually appreciate it because I've had several instances. I mean, it took a long time for me to figure this out, but several instances where I was, interacting with a girl and I was being like very overt with my like sexual intention, not like creepy or anything like that, but just like being like, hey, like having this kind of natural sexual energy with her. And multiple times I had girls thank me for it. Like to my face, they were like, hey, thank you for being so like open with your sexuality around me. And that just so went against my childhood programming that I was like, huh, what is this? Like they're thanking me for this. Like, and that's when I realized like, oh, I believe it's not okay to be sexual. I believe that was something I had to hide. But the less I hide it, the more I act like a sexual man, the more women were drawn to me sexually. So, and that's a process that can take time. So that's what I would say is like my big number one tip. That's like the main thing I try to help work with my guys is developing that kind of vibe. You know, I'm a sexual masculine man, and that's a good thing.
So, for one, uh, how does one kind of increase their sexual aura, so to speak? And yeah, just kind of break that down. 'Cause I know there's a fine line. I know some men might take that message and take it a little too far, like
Yeah, for sure.
aggressive. So, is that
So that's the thing, like, so when a guy does take it to too far, right, and too aggressive with that, the problem is he's still probably in his head about it. He's still not just letting it flow. So it's about relaxing. That's really what it is. You know, a guy with high testosterone, with a high sex drive, you want to think of him as this like really aggressive guy, but that's actually not the case. He's going to be a much more relaxed guy. He's going to be that smooth guy, right? Now he can throw down if the situation calls for it. If someone needs to be protected, or if there's an injustice, he can crank up that aggressiveness and assertiveness to protect others. But really, he's calm because he knows, that he's got, and it's confidence, right? When you think of confidence, do you think of someone trying to like aggressively try to do something, or are they just doing it like Kobe, right?
Mhm.
He's just flying up to the basket, right? It looks easy, it's natural, right? He's just letting it flow, it's natural, right? Whereas a guy who's trying like way too hard, it's like, oh, I must be sexual, so I'm gonna go be sexual. You can even hear it in my voice there. Like I put it back into my head. I'm putting it back into my head energy there, right? So you gotta relax and one good technique to use is meditation, because you have to get in tune with your body. Women are very sensual creatures. They're much more in tune with their body and their senses than men tend to be because we're very rational and logical. So we're always thinking like, okay, how can I accomplish this? How can I go hunt and provide food? How can I go make some money? How can I get this girl, right? It's all very head based. So a woman wants to be with a man who can be on her level in that sense of like, he's relaxed, he's in his body, he's got that flow. That's why women love a man who can dance, right? Because he's in his body and he's flowing and he's got that, he's not up in his head, right? And think about that. If you, let's say you go to a club and you see guys on the dance floor, you can tell which ones look creepy in their head while they're dancing, right? Because
Hmm.
they're like, I'm not sure, am I doing this right? Like, but the guy that's just like flowing, and he's letting his energy flow. Um, and you can even, think of it, though I like to think of like kind of three energy places. Like there's your head, which is great for problem solving, but it's not great for interacting or building relationships or having sex. Then there's kind of your heart energy, which is more like what I'm flowing with you right now. We're relating, we're communicating. I'm not in my head. I'm not trying to, solve a problem with you. I'm just trying to express, my thoughts, my beliefs with you. You're trying to understand, what I do and how I like to do that. And then there's your cock energy, which is when you really lower that energy and you feel it, with a girl, and you want to let your energy come through there, which is a hard thing to do for a lot of guys because if they have that shame, it's probably blocked off. So they're going to need work, probably through some guided meditations where they can just really relax their body and sense it because you can't think about it. You can't think about putting your energy down there. You have to just let it go there. You have to sense it. You have to feel it. You have to relax into it.
Interesting. I'm an overthinker,
Oh
so
yeah.
that might not help. So okay, so you say okay. So how does so you said meditation helps. So okay, so now you're face to face with women, say you're at an event or something like that, and you're using your cock energy, so to speak.
Yeah.
So how do you maneuver with that? Once you have the energy, what do you do with it?
Okay, so essentially, like if you're talking to a girl, and what I've noticed is that the better you get at this, the more you tend to draw them to you, right? So especially like let's say you're on a dance floor, which is one of my favorite places to go. I'm really into dancing, so if you're on a dance floor and you're really flowing with that cock energy, you'll notice that girls will start to gravitate towards you, right? They won't approach you probably, but if a girl is, I'd say within like 3 to 6 feet of you and she wasn't there 15 seconds earlier, she probably is feeling digging your energy and wants you to make an approach. So make an approach, make it slow, make it smooth. Um, and just trust your process and feel when you approach a girl, feel your sexual desire for her. Don't think, oh, what do I have to say to get this girl to like me? Feel like, ooh, I like this girl. She makes me feel like a sexual man. And I think a lot of guys get confused with that because in our modern day, right, most guys are actually really good guys and we don't want to make girls feel uncomfortable. So we think, oh my God, if I approach a girl with sexual energy, that's going to be creepy. But it's actually the complete opposite, right? Because if you approach her, because why are you approaching her? You want to, the potential to be intimate at some point with her, right? So if you approach her for that ultimate end goal of intimacy with your problem solving brain, that's what's actually creepy, right? And that's why then
Mm,
that's how you get friend zoned too, because the girl will be like, wait, I thought you just wanted to talk to me. I thought you were just, whatever. But when you approach with that sexual energy, she can accept that and be like, oh, you're a sexual man, you're approaching me for this reason. Okay. And then she can make the decision at that point. She can let you advance. You can ask her to dance. And if she's into it, she'll probably dance with you. If she's not into it, she'll let you know. And that's fine. Just gotta let her be. There will be another girl for sure, but it's not creepy to be sexual. It's creepy to be sexual with that head energy. So that's what I always try and teach guys to understand the difference between those two.
mm. Interesting, interesting. That's good stuff right there. So it's all about the mindset.
Yeah, the mindset, yes, but also the body. It's more about the body. It's about feeling your energy in your body. It's about being connected to your sexuality and not being ashamed of it, right?
Hmm. Got you, got you. So what
And
would
it's really hard for guys because we're so analytical, right? That's so we want to think our way into it, but you got to feel your way into it.
okay, okay. Now I'm overthinking what you're saying now. Like, I'm trying to
Right,
get how
naturally.
I can implement that into to my approaches. What would you say is the biggest struggle that men have in the dating scene?
Oh man, there's so many. Like, yeah, I guess it would depend on what category you want to go in. Like, just in terms of like actually going out and approaching. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. So with that, fear. the biggest thing, approach anxiety, getting stuck in your head, wondering, oh, what do I say? Because you're trying so hard at that point to like impress her instead of just allowing her
Mm,
in and allowing both of your guys' energy to unfold, right? Women don't have like an end goal plan like we do, right? Like
mm.
we have point A, we want to get to point B, and so we come up with what a logical plan to get there, right? Women just want to let it unfold. They just want to let it happen, right? Thinking of girls like, well, I didn't think I was gonna go home with him, but like we were just in the moment and it just happened, right? It just happened, right? So you got to let that unfold, and that fear, so to the fear and shame, those are the two biggest struggles that guys have to overcome. Because obviously, I mean, you still have to be bold at some point. You have to make that move. You have to make the approach. You have to escalate. You have to ask her for, her phone number or for a date or for a dance or to go home with you, whatever it is you want. Like you still have to be bold enough to ask for it.
Got it, got it. I just wrote down a men approach with a plan, women don't. They just want things to unfold. I think that's the bar right there. I'm keeping that, writing that down in my homework
Yeah,
file.
good.
Uh, what would you say is the goal of all the content that you produce?
So the goal of my content is going to be very directed in that like kind of that learning to be in your sexual energy, but also understanding like so you do still need the logical part. You still do need to understand like there is a plan. The plan is approach, maybe then take her to the dance floor, then take her to get a drink, have a conversation, you know, get her phone number, take her on a date, take her home. Like so there is still a plan. There are still steps you have to follow. So I do give tips on that. I give tips about how to, do better with your verbals. So, like for example, vocal tonality tips, dance floor tips, how to, not run out of things to say tips. But even then, it still comes back to more about relaxing because I can, if I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about, like this with you, I'm not in my head thinking like, oh my God, what am I going to say next? Like this stuff is just flowing from my heart energy, like I was saying before, right? This stuff just flows. I don't have to think about it. I don't have a plan of what I'm going to say. I can just speak, my truth. And that's where guys want to get with their girls, speak your truth, connect with the heart. But if you want to obviously, if you want to have an intimate relationship with her, then connect with your cock energy and your sexual energy as well. So, but yeah, to answer your question, that's my main goal. Is this is the thing that I feel like I figured out for myself. So it's what I want to help other guys figure out too.
So just randomly thinking, let's say hypothetically you're leading with your cock energy and you approach a woman and you just say like, because I know a lot of people think of it as extreme to like go and just, hey, you want to come home with me, as like the first thing they say. Is that
Right.
is that too much cock energy?
That's probably too much. Yeah. Because so that comes back to the you're probably not you're not letting it unfold. So that's actually out of fear. When you try and escalate too quickly, it usually is out of fear because you're like, oh, I don't know how to do the next step, so I'm just going to try and skip the steps and get her to come home with me, right?
Interesting.
So the key is like you have to trust yourself when you approach a girl. And I'm not a big fan of like pickup lines or anything like that. I'm a big fan of hi. I tell my guys don't overthink it. Just walk up to her and say hello because I don't want her, to think, oh my God, the word his pickup line was so good. I want to fuck him. That's not how it works, right? But I want her to think, oh, this guy came and said hi to me and he just had this vibe. He had this energy. I felt it. Because you want her to feel, right? Guys think, what do I say to get her to like me, right? That's logical, right? But she wants to feel it. So a girl won't fuck you because of your pickup line, but she will reject you for your pickup line if it's really bad. So in general, I just say just go with hi. That's fine. You don't need anything else. And if you're in the moment and you're feeling something else, you can open her with a compliment or, something genuine, an observation. But in general, like don't try and get cute with the pickup line. So overall, it's basically you have to approach and start a conversation. and then you just have to, if she's vibing you, then you just have to lead. So I would say leading is probably the better way to think about it. You want to lead her on a journey, right? So let's say you're at a club, you approach, maybe you talk for 2 minutes, right? 3 minutes. If she's still talking to you, then she's into you, right? So lead. What do you want to do next? Hey, I want to go over to the dance floor, dance to 2 songs, 3 songs. Don't stay there forever because you always want to be leading. You always want to take her on an adventure, right? Hey, oh my God, all this dancing makes me thirsty. Let's get a drink from the bar. Hey, have you seen the outdoor patio? I want a chance to talk and connect a little bit more, right? So maybe you can go outdoors. Maybe there's a place to sit. If you two can sit, you can um, get more into it with that kind of heart energy connection, deep eye contact, but you can also be touching her because you're close. So, and slowly escalate. So always be escalating. And escalating is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? So, the first time you touch her might be on her shoulder, then it might be on her waist. And then, but then take a step back, maybe a touch on the arm, right? Then 2 steps forward, maybe a touch on the waist, then maybe both hands on the waist, right? Then take a step back, maybe hold her hand or something. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This is how girls like to be taken on the journey, right? So you're right. You don't want to just, hey, let's go home, right? That's not what she wants. She wants to be turned on slowly over time. She wants to let it unfold.
Mm. Oh, man, I don't got time for that, man. So my thing is, one of my issues I will say is that I like to skip the process. I think approaching, I think I'm fairly decent with that. Getting the number, but then once I get the number, that's why I want to skip the process. So I want to get down. For me, I want to get down to business. I feel like I did my job already. So what? So how does one lead with their cock energy through texting?
So, with texting in general, so texting is a very logical process because you're reading words on a screen. You have to think about what to say and what comes next. So my whole strategy when it came to texting was to just use it to set the date, right? Because she's not going to feel that cock energy over text, and because even if you say something like overtly sexual over text, it can still just come off creepy. Like there are times when it works. Like don't get me wrong. Like you can sext, you can send dirty messages or dirty pictures or something like that. Which I mean, just in general, I don't recommend sending dirty pictures to a girl that you're not like maybe in a relationship with. Still, maybe not even ever. Just because in this day and age, you never know where that's going to end up.
Good point.
But so from getting the number, are you talking about like from a cold approach or like from a first date to a second date? What are you talking about there?
Uh, like from the number, like 2 sex.
Okay, so when you meet her initially, right? So this is the key. When you meet her initially, obviously you want to make sure she's vibing you, which she probably is if she gave you her phone number. Set the dates in person, right? That's the key because hey, it's Saturday night at the club, it's like, oh, I got to go home with my friends, but I want to see you. Say, hey, tomorrow night, Sunday night, we're going to have a date. We're going to do this at this time. And if she says, okay, then all you have to do for texting is send one like logistical text the next day, like, hey, nice meeting you last night. Thai food at 5 p.m. at this place today. And then she says, cool. And then you can go back to, once you meet in person, you can go back to having that, smooth sexual energy with her. And then even at the end of a date. So always set your dates before you leave her for the night, right? So maybe that's your first date. Maybe it goes really well and you bring her back to your place and you're all good. If you want to see her again, same deal though. Set the date at the end of the night. Like she has to go home, be like, hey, I had a lot of fun tonight. Let's do Taco Tuesday. I'll pick you up at 6. Does that sound good? She says yes. Well, then you don't have to text her throughout the week. All you have to do is text her on Tuesday and say, like, hey, be there at 6, wear something cute, right? And then from there, it's just easy because text messaging, so much gets lost, and a lot of guys will, it's kind of like with the whole, oh, what do I say? It's the same thing with texting, like, oh, what do I text? I mean, that's not the best way to seduce a girl. The best way to seduce a girl is in person, is to let her feel your masculine energy and let her get turned on by that.
Now you mentioned earlier you figured out some ways where you can make the conversation not die, where you never really run out of things to say. So what are your some suggestions when it comes to that?
So the best way, I mean, so there's, some basic conversation techniques, like threading. So, you're talking about, one subject, and then she says something within that subject, and you kind of want to go deeper on it, right?
Mhm.
So that's one way. And then the main way though is, well, you could also have topics like in your head, cool stories of things you've done. I mean, that's a whole other point. It's like, live an interesting life. The more fun stuff you do, the more things you're gonna have to talk about in general, the more life experiences you're gonna have. So you're gonna know like, oh, I've had this conversation before, so I know how to respond here or respond there. But overall, just relax, because if you're relaxed and if you're not trying to run out of things to say, then you won't. But if you are trying, and it's like a paradox, and it's frustrating, believe me, because I was there for many years where I was always just like, oh, I'm having these conversations and I run out of things to say. But it's because I'm trying not to run out of things to say. That's what I'm thinking about in my head. My head is saying, what do I think about to, or what do I say to not run out of things to say? Well, then when I have to actually open my mouth, that's the only thing in my head, right? So if you're
Mm.
not if you're not in your head, you never run out of things to say, because you're just expressing yourself. You're expressing yourself in the moment. Um, and to go in general, just conversation skill, just go deeper. So don't try to have like tons of topics. Go deeper. If she's telling you, about her dog or whatever, you know, go deeper. Like, oh, is this your first dog? Did you have a dog when you were a kid? What's your experience with dogs like? What do you like to do with your dog? How does your dog make you feel? Though you just want to go deeper. So try to have more depth than breadth, right? So go deeper on a subject instead of having a bunch of like different subjects.
Mm.
And get her to talk about herself. That's the other key, is listen more, right? The more she's talking about herself, the closer you are to getting in her pants, for sure, because everybody likes to talk about themselves, especially women. So if she feels like you're someone that she can express herself to, that she can confide in, that she can talk about, everything, like her fantasies, her beliefs, her struggles, her likes, her dislikes, she's going to feel very close to you. And when you have an emotional connection, right? Oh, so that's another key. Like, connect on emotions with women, not on facts, right? So she has a dog and you have a dog. The connection isn't that you have both have dogs. The connection is, what kind of emotions do you experience with your dogs? What kind of senses do you experience with your dogs, right?
Got you. That's good stuff. So, do you ever want to be married again?
Yes, I do.
Interesting. Why?
Yeah. So, I was definitely skeptical of the whole idea for a while after my marriage ended. And so what happened was, so I got into the dating field and I started doing a lot of pickup stuff. But then I met this girl who became my next girlfriend after my marriage, and I ended up getting into a relationship with her, and she was my girlfriend. And I just remembered during that, I was like, oh, I actually do like being in a relationship better than being single. It's, I don't know, it's just more enjoyable to me. And each guy can, if that's not for every guy, like that's fine. I don't judge a guy who does or doesn't like a relationship. And eventually that relationship ended too, but I do remember it specifically sparking in my mind, thinking like, okay, you know what? I mean, at the end of the day, I do love doing the single thing. It's super fun. I like going out and having wild stories, and experiencing, these fun sexual escapades. But at the end of the day, I do really enjoy having someone that I can be close with. Um, but I wasn't quite ready at that time to. I wasn't. I was still growing as a man, and I wasn't at a point where I could be the masculine leader that she really needed. So that relationship didn't end up working out. So then I spent another, a few more years doing my dating thing, and I am actually in a relationship right now with a fantastic woman, where I actually feel like the dynamic is finally the way I want it to be, where I'm the masculine leader, she looks up to me. Whereas in my last two relationships, I feel like I looked up to them a little bit, and I really looked to them for my source of validation, to feel good about myself. and I felt like I needed them, to feel good about myself. Whereas now in my current relationship, I already feel good about myself, and she really looks up to me. And the dynamic is finally that one that I want. Like I'm her protector. I'm her safety. She's not my safety.
God,
And so
is the relationship monogamous?
it is, yes.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, okay. Do you want any kids one day?
Yes. If I didn't want kids, I probably would never get married. So that is a big part of it. Even though I'm not, like I said, I'm not a Christian anymore, I do still believe firmly in the power of a two-parent household, for raising kids. I've worked with kids a lot in my life, and I've seen, just the difference between kids who grow up with two, strong and supportive parents who live together and give them a very stable life, versus a more chaotic life of having to move around or maybe split time between parents or maybe not even knowing one of their parents. So I really want to do my best to give my future kids the best life that they can have, and I think that being married, and having a strong relationship with that woman is one of the best ways to do that. And people get really upset with me when I say that sometimes, but that is what I believe.
Got you. That is phenomenal. You're kind of going against the grain in this space here with this whole relationship talk. So
Yeah. I would, well, I would like to, and like I said, I don't have anything against guys who want to go play the field or anything like that. But I also don't think it's, like, if any guys think it's like, oh, beta to be in a relationship or anything like that, like, I definitely don't think so. I think you can be beta in a relationship, but just being in one doesn't make you beta or anything like that. If you're being the masculine leader, and you're the one that she looks up to, and she's completely pair bonded to you, and she's on board with you and your mission in life, then I think it's great.
now, if you end up having a daughter one day, what is some relationship advice that you would give her?
Oh man, what would I tell her?
Right.
I'll probably write a book one day, and I'll just say, "Hey, read this." But basically, I'm gonna let her know that, look, here's the deal. If you want, the main thing I would want is for her to avoid all the mistakes that so many women these days make, where they just waste their 20s, hoeing around, and focusing on a career or something, and then get into their late 30s and they decide they want kids, but it's almost too late. So I just want to let her know, like, hey, if you want kids and family, if that's important to you, which it is to most women, even ones that say it's not, like I believe it really is to most women. Like, you need to plan for that, because you can't just do whatever and then turn around in your mid 30s and say, okay, I'm ready. The highest value man you're going to be able to attract is probably between the ages of 23 and 26. So that's probably the time that you should really be looking to lock down a really good guy. So don't, like, it's fine to go out and it's fine to have fun. And I'm not a Puritan or anything like that. I don't think girls need to necessarily stay virgins until they're married or anything like that. I'm definitely against, like, racking up a ridiculous body count. Um, but I think the world is messy, and this probably comes from my religious, having so much shame in my religious background. The world is messy. No one's going to be perfect, but you still do need to preserve your value, and you need to show, if you want a high value guy, someone who's going to provide and protect and all that. You need to show him that you're going to be a good partner for that, and that you're a good bet for him, because there are a lot of risks that men do have to take, when it comes to marriage and relationships these days, that they didn't have to take years ago. So, you, like, it's really on the girl to show him, hey, I'm not a risk. Like, I'm going to make your life better. I'm not going to make your life chaos. I'm not going to make it harder. I'm not going to give you trust issues. Like, I'm in this because I want a family. So, that would probably be the main thing I tell her.
That's good. That's good. You need to write that book, by the way, because that's a book that I would read, honestly. Honestly. So what are some of the things that your current girlfriend has that the rest of the competition doesn't? What separates her?
So, first thing is a really strong relationship with her family and her parents. That's really important to me because that shows me, well, and her parents are still together, and it shows me that family is important to her. And I mean, she says family is important to her too, but her actions show it even more, right? She's very, very strong relationship with her family. Um, I can just tell it and just the things she says about like, kids, that she wants to be a mother, she loves kids, she works with kids, um, and she just talks about family, and she talks about being a wife, and she talks about being a mother. My last girlfriend, the one between my marriage and my current one, like she would mention it, but really all she cared about was partying. And at
Mhm.
that time it was great for me because I was in a party mood myself at that time. So I thought, oh, me and this girl are great for each other because we're both into partying right now, right? But that ended up being terrible for, long-term relationship. Whereas my girl, I don't feel like she's got one foot out the door. Um, when she speaks about me, she speaks with a lot of respect. Both of my previous girls didn't do that, so I can tell that this girl, like, she looks up to me, she respects me, she wants me and only me. She expresses that through her words, and she also expresses that through her actions. So it was actually almost surprising to me because I'd kind of started to get into this mindset of like, oh well, all girls are just party girls, and girls don't care about family anymore. So when I met her, it was almost a surprise to me, and I was like, you're like wife material. Like, and I hadn't met a girl like that in a very long time. So, just the more time I spent with her, um, the more I realized, like, oh, she's like actually for real. Like, this is actually all she wants. So she doesn't have that. Um, I guess that societal messaging that says like, oh, getting married is a waste of time. She's like, no, that's all I want to do. Like, I want to be a wife and a mother, and I want to have a family and maintain a home. And she works too, which is fine with me. But that's not her focus. Isn't getting attention from other men. She doesn't have like close guy friends or anything like that. Like, I'm the man in her life. So everything she does, she shows me, like, hey, like, I'm not a risk. Kind of like I was saying before. Like, I'm actually one of the. I don't want to use the word good girl because I know there's no such thing. But yeah, she's great. So I just I trust her. I guess at the end of the day, that's what it is.
Where did you find her?
Dude, okay, so this is the funniest fucking thing, right? Um, I own a house and I have renters in the house. So I had a renter moving out, and I had posted an ad online looking for a new renter, and she actually responded to it. So she responded on Instagram, and so I saw her picture, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like, I do not want you to live here because you're way too hot." But in her description, she's like, "Hey, Brad, I'm interested in the room. This is about me. I'm this. I'm this. I'm this. I'm this. I'm this." I'm like, that's like exactly what I would like, you know, in a girlfriend. So I told her, hey, the room's not for rent anymore, but would you like to go get some coffee? And so we went out, got coffee, and we just realized we had we're just very compatible. We had very similar backgrounds. She grew up religious too, just like me, but also just like me, she's not really religious anymore, but she still has some of those like traditional family values that she wants. So it was just it's just easy, man. Our whole relationship has been
Mm.
easy. And I think that's another message that I would like, to tell guys if they are interested in relationships, that's the marker. That's what you need to look for. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Like, oh, is this the right girl? All you have to ask yourself, is it easy? Is the relationship easy?
Mm.
Because even, I mean, we've had conflict, but one, the conflict is rare. And two, when it does happen, even that's easy to get like past it, right? Doesn't necessarily feel good in the moment, but we can communicate, we can take accountability, and that's a big thing too for girls. Like, you got to find a girl that knows how to take accountability, which is very, very rare. So that was another big green flag, with my girlfriend, that told me, hey, this girl's accountable for her actions. She doesn't blame me, you know if she's having a bad day, she doesn't take things out on me. She comes to me. She seeks comfort in me instead of blaming me for her problems.
Well, was the room actually taken, or did you just not want to move her in?
It was taken. I just rented it out like a week or two before she sent me that message. So I told her, "Oh, the room is already taken." And yeah, then I asked her out. She said yes. So this is history.
Rest is history. I love that. So how does a man find his purpose?
So my opinion on that is you already know it, you're just afraid of it, right? So, like for me, my purpose is to help guys with this issue. This is something I've been thinking about for years. Ever since I got into the dating field, I always thought, like, hey, my coaches are helping me out so much. I want to help other guys. And I did. I would work with my coaches kind of like as an assistant coach. And I would help my friends out and everything, but I was too scared to really make the leap to really try and pursue something and make it happen on my own. But in the back of my mind, I always knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to coach, I wanted to help men. Um, so if you're struggling to find your purpose, I would just say, like, if you weren't afraid, then what would you do? If you knew you were going to succeed, what would you do?
Mm,
Right? Because without that fear holding you back, like that's probably what your purpose is. And it's probably not something crazy or grandiose. Like it's probably just whatever you're interested in, right? Whatever you're obsessed about, whatever you thought, oh man, it would be so cool to do that, but I just don't think I could, right? That's what it is. And you have to go for it. And it's just like getting good with girls at first, you're gonna suck at it at first, and you're gonna have to deal with some painful rejections, losses. But you just keep going, and you show up every day. You put in the work, and eventually things will start to flow.
how does a man identify his masculine identity?
His masculine identity. What do you mean by that exactly?
Like, how does a man find his masculine identity? How does he recognize it?
I would say he just needs to take action. So many guys are held down by all the modern addictions that we have: porn, Netflix, video games, alcohol, weed. So it's easy to numb your identity and not go out and pursue anything. So, when you can remove those and you go out in life and you take action, you learn who you are through your actions, right? So every day, oh, I'm out here working on this, you build your identity. Because your identity is really just what you do every day.
Mm, that's a good one.
So you have to practice your identity, right? And you can choose your identity. If you want to be like, I'm really into music. So I always want to be someone who could play music, but I didn't know how to play an instrument. So I'm like, well, I want to. So then what happened? Well, I finally found an app that I really like to help me learn guitar and piano. And then I'll get on like streaks, like for a good solid 2 years, I was on that app for guitar almost every single day. So if I play guitar every day for an hour for 2 years, guess what my identity is? I'm a guitar player now because that's what I do, right? If I play piano every day for 2 hours, well, I'm a piano player. If I go out to the bars every weekend and pick up girls, well, I'm a pickup artist, right? Like, so whatever you do, like that's your identity. That's who you are, right? So if you're an athlete, right? If I practice martial arts every single day for years on end, well, then I'm a martial artist, right? So who you are is just what you do, and you get to decide what you do. So, choose your identity. Don't let someone else tell you who you are, you know, but also understand that whoever you say you are, you do have to back it up with action.
Mm, that's a bar right there. My final question: what do you want your legacy to be?
What do I want my legacy to be? You know, I just want people to I just want to be a man of significance. I wanted to have made an impact on people's lives. So I want people to say, like, you know, Brad changed my life. Before Brad, I was this. After Brad, this, right?
Mhm.
It was, through his coaching, through his help, through his service, whatever it is. I want them to think of me as someone who moved the needle forward, for them in their lives. So right now, I'm obviously really into the dating and relationship stuff. So really, I would like to have a positive impact on society. I know society is going to hell in a handbasket right now. Um, we have so much social disconnect. We've got people. We got school shootings. We have people just like with horrible social behavior. Nobody gets along. We're terribly divided as a country. And in pretty much everything, politics, religion, everything. We're just so divided. So my hope is that if I can help the men and women connect better, then hopefully society will get better as well.
Got you. That seems like a very, very valiant plan you got there. I appreciate you so much for coming on and taking the time out to speak to me. It means a lot.
Absolutely. I had a really good time. Should do it again.
All right, make sure you like and subscribe, and his all his links will be in the description as well.